I spent on a trip to Taiwan and Vietnam as a solo traveler. Took a trip to Taiwan and Vietnam completely by myself. So that means all the costs came down on me. And as a solo female traveler, I have to think about my safety. So the price of safety needs to be factored in. What is the actual cost of traveling? Taiwan was my first stop in my Asia trip, and I spent 5 days there. These costs are going to be a little bit different than the normal trip to Taiwan cost because I went to a music festival. That was like my big main reason of going. I've always wanted to go to Taiwan. I love going to EDM festivals around the world. So I found a festival in Taiwan that I wanted to go to, and I built my trip around that. If you've never been to Asia, the most expensive part about a trip to Asia is getting there and getting back. Our flight to Taiwan, I live in Miami, so from Miami to Taipei, Taiwan, that flight cost me $1,993. Damn near $2,000 just to leave the United States. That is just one way. You might be thinking like, that is an insane price. And it is. Your flight doesn't have to be that expensive. The reason why this flight was so expensive is because I bought my flight right after the war with the United States started with Iran, and the Strait of Hormuz was closed. The fuel prices started being affected because when I looked at this flight prior to all of that, it was a lot less. But after that, like the prices did jump up. That was a factor in the price. I also didn't book until a month out, so that also raised the price. I also paid for a refundable ticket. The cheaper the ticket, the less perks and flexibility you have, right? Like say you buy the cheapest ticket, it's non-refundable or you can't even cancel or whatever. So I also paid a little bit more to be able to have my ticket refundable in cases where it got crazy and I decided not to go. I've also learned with United specifically, that if you have like a carry-on bag that you want to put in the overhead bin, like you want to get on that plane as soon as you can. Like I've had horror stories of trying to fit my bag up top and there's no room and they were going to try to take it. I've learned if I have a carry-on and I want my carry-on to be right above me, then I need to pay for priority boarding. I upgraded both of my flights because I had to fly from Miami, I had a layover, and then over to Taiwan. So for 2 flights, I did upgrade to priority boarding. So that also factored in. And then I also pay for my seat, which seat that I want to choose. My flight to Miami to San Francisco was 6 hours. And then from San Francisco to Taiwan was 13 hours. Like I want to be comfortable. I'm not going to be stuck in a window seat. Your flight out of the United States does not have to be almost $2,000. I pay for convenience, flexibility, and comfort. So that all costs money. I was in Taiwan for 5 nights. So my accommodation for 5 nights, I stayed at the Westgate Hotel in the Shimending district, and that cost me $891.90. It's a little pricey, but again, I'm alone, I'm a female. I have to factor in my safety. So I will always stay in a hotel. I'm not doing Airbnbs. I will stay in a hotel in a desirable area. I always do my research on where to stay. I'm also a 36-year-old woman. Like I'm not gonna hostels. I don't go for these 5-star hotels, but I'm also not staying in a hostel either. I get mid-ground. You could get a cheaper accommodation for 5 nights in Taipei. I already mentioned that I was there for a festival, so I did get a VIP festival ticket that cost me $225. There's always the cheaper option. You don't have to get VIP. You can always get GA, so that's some money-saving tips right there. I wasn't gonna calculate to the penny what I spent on food or fun or anything like that. So I had converted 450 cash in USD to Taiwan dollars. That money lasted me the whole time that I was there. And then I had some left over. And then I also had some credit card charges for $23.34. Again, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I predominantly use cash in Taiwan. With that, I was buying food like at the street market, street stalls, going into convenience stores, going to different attractions, and just various touristy things around Taiwan. My main reason of being in Taiwan was for the festival. Now, if you're there for something else, your prices could look a lot different. Also just ate more street food than I did more of like sit down dinner, so that also kind of helped save with money too. Just because I was able to last on $450 in 5 days doesn't mean that you can, or maybe that's even too much for you. After Taiwan, I went to Vietnam for basically 3 full days. Like I got there on a Wednesday and I left Saturday, but I only had a full 3 days there in the country. Now, once you're in Asia, it's easy to country hop. So my flight from Taiwan to Vietnam was only $430.45. Now that is pretty expensive for a trip in Asia. When I first looked at these prices, they were a lot less, but after the war started, the prices did go up. And again, I paid more for a refundable option just in case things went south. My accommodation for 3 nights, I stayed at Sala Da Nang Hotel. I got a suite. This is still crazy to me. $563.14. This room was amazing. I'm still a little shocked by that. Sometimes if you go to a website, a hotel's website, and they say like the original price is $1,500, but right now you can get it for half off. That's what it said. I don't know if that's actually the true cost of the room, say $1,000 and I got it for half off, or if it's always like that. Either way though, this room was so big and beautiful. Like, I'm a little shook, but also Vietnam is very affordable. That was the most expensive part of being in Vietnam, was my accommodation, but I did get a really nice hotel, rooftop pool, and it was lovely. Now, before I even went to Vietnam, I did have to get a visa. So if you're going to Vietnam, you need a visa as a foreigner. The cost of the visa is only $25. However, I needed to get new photos taken to submit a photo within the last 6 months. So I did have to get photos taken. So the total cost of me getting my visa, $47.13. Now, the money that I actually spent in Vietnam, it's kind of hard to say just because I had a friend there for 1 day, so he would pay for everything and then we would just kind of like figure out the money. I would say I probably spent like $50 cash in Vietnam. As I'm editing the video, I realized I didn't really talk about like what that $50 pretty much got me across 3-4 days in Vietnam. So everything is super affordable there. And generally, a lot of the things that I got were less than $2. I rented a chair on the beach. That was $2 for the day. I bought a coconut drink, less than $2. Every time I went out and bought coffee, less than $2. Banh mi sandwich, $2. A lot of things are, give or take, around $2. Those little purchases like that. But even when my friend and I went to have 5-plated dinner, $22. My credit card expenses totaled out to $65.50. I was drinking at my rooftop pools, where like the heavy expenses came from. Now, if you were to go have those same drinks in a bar on the streets of Vietnam, it's gonna be significantly cheaper, but I was being a little bougie and I was having glasses of wine up there and mixed drinks. So that makes up the majority of the cost, was my drinks up at my rooftop pool. About $14 of that was Uber ride. It's called Grab in Vietnam. They don't have Uber at all. You have to download the Grab app, and so affordable. And I was using like multiple a day. Like normal places, an Uber ride is one Uber ride one way would be $14. But the fact that I spent $15 across 4 days in Vietnam is amazing. Leaving Asia to come back home, another heavy expense. Like I said, the most expensive part of Asia is getting there and getting back. For my flight home, that cost me $2,005.69, another hefty ticket. This is a very unique situation. I found out that EVA Airways has a Hello Kitty plane and they only do specific routes. So for me to be able to get on that plane during this Asia trip, I had to take that plane from Vietnam, Da Nang, had a layover in Taiwan, and then get into Chicago, because Chicago is the only entry and exit point of this Hello Kitty plane. And I'm gonna link that video so you can see my experience with the Hello Kitty plane through EVA Airways. Because if you didn't know, I'm obsessed with Hello Kitty, like obsessed. This is just one of many things. Like just sitting right here is a blanket. Just a little disclaimer. Very specific route, Hello Kitty plane. Again, I got the refundable option. Prices were a little bit more because of the war. This isn't always gonna be the cost of a flight. Because I had to take this flight into Chicago, I live in Miami. I had to buy a whole separate flight. So again, this is an added expense that most people would not have. That flight cost me through American Airlines $292.40. Because I had to fly into Chicago before flying into Miami. I also had to book an accommodation in Chicago because I landed in Chicago on a Saturday night and the next flight to Miami wasn't going to be until 5 in the morning. Again, I'm 36 years old. I'm not going to hang out in an airport all night or sleep on the floor. Like, I'm going to get a hotel room. So I did book a room at the Hilton in the Chicago airport. I didn't have to take an Uber. I was just able to walk there. So it was pricey for one night, $292.73. If you had to do this, you could do it much cheaper because you don't have to get the room at the airport. You could have got a much more affordable hotel for a one-night stay outside of the airport. I'm paying for convenience. I didn't want to deal with an Uber, leaving the airport and then coming back the next morning. So I paid just to have the convenience of staying at the airport, being able to walk from the terminal to the hotel back to the terminal. Now, I didn't have to pay anything actually because I used my credit card rewards. I'll link the video that I've made on this explaining this before, that you need to be using credit cards to be able to pay for your travels. So I have a cashback card, I have a travel card, and these points or this cash converts to free stays. So I didn't have to pay a penny for the Hilton one night stay in Chicago because I used my credit card points to pay for that. So that is an expense that was zero. Now, the other cost that you don't always think about, like, okay, I'm going to Asia, I need to budget this much for Asia. But think about the cost that you're gonna spend still in the United States. So for example, I spent $197.27 on US related travel expenses. So that's the Uber to the airport, the Uber from the airport, all the food and drinks that I buy in the airport. Again, this could be a much more affordable expense. Say if you want to pack your own food or pack your own snacks, you wouldn't need to eat at the airport, or you don't need to have a glass of wine at lunch. Now, another cost is your phone plan. So I just used my AT&T international phone plan. It's $12 a day. Now, if you don't want to use your phone plan, you would still have to pay money for like a data plan or an eSIM or a physical SIM or something like that. So for those days in Asia, my additional phone expense was $108. And then another added expense, I will always get travel insurance when I'm taking these big out of country trips, and it has come in clutch before. I have had to use it, and it helped tremendously because you never know when a flight's going to get canceled. When you're going to get stuck in another country and you have to be put in a hotel, get delayed. You will get reimbursed for all of that. I am going to be making a video soon of what travel insurance I use because I've used it before. It pays to be safe. The hundreds of trips I've taken, I've only had to use travel insurance once, but I will still always get it. So that cost me $160.48. I used Faye travel insurance, and I'm going to make a full detailed video on my experience with them. Things like the travel insurance, the United States airport and travel cost, your phone plan, these are all expenses that you have to build into your budget outside of just the money that you're going to spend in that other country. So always think about these things, these added expenses. So what is the grand total of my cost for 9 days in Asia as a solo traveler? I went ahead and rounded it off just because it was like close enough and some change, but basically I spent $7,500 in Asia for 9 days. Outside of certain ways that you could cut costs, like this is the reality of traveling as a solo female. I have to consider my safety first and foremost over anything. So things like an added expense of travel insurance, like if I'm by myself in another country, like I'm able to get the care that I need. Since I don't do hostels, I only do hotels, and fairly nice hotels at that. I'm not doing these 5-star stays, but I'm also not staying in a hostel either. I also do my research and I stay in very desirable, walkable, safe neighborhoods. I typically always get the refundable option if I can. Again, if I need to get the hell out of there, or if something just goes wrong or sideways, or things that happen beyond my control, like I need to be able to protect myself, get out of there, cancel the trip if I need to. So these are just all added expenses as a solo female traveler that make the travel experience a little bit more expensive than the average trip or traveler. Throughout this video, I've just mentioned so many times that I pay for safety, convenience, and comfort. If you're going to Asia for 9 days, you could probably cut that cost in half. You do not have to spend $7,500. You could definitely cut that cost in half to fit your budget. Now, the next part's gonna be some money saving tips on how you can make this trip more aligned with your budget. Like, don't be scared, like, oh my God, I can't go to Asia by myself because I can't afford it. Like, yes, you can. The biggest expense getting to and from Asia, the plane ticket. You don't have to get the refundable option. You don't have to pay for your seats. You don't have to pay for priority boarding. Hopefully there's not a war that's affecting the fuel prices or ticket prices. And you can also plan much more in advance, right? I bought my ticket a month out. Like, you know that you're going in 5 months or a year, like book your ticket according to you. I also pay to get there as quickly as I can. Like, the least amount of layovers, the better for me. But the cheapest tickets usually have these crazy layovers. You have 2 stops and you could have a 15-hour layover in some country. Like, I'm not doing that, right? Like, I am not doing that. So those are all ways that you could save money on your plane ticket. You could cut that $4,000 in half, or maybe even a lot less getting to and from Asia. Now, if you're doing events or things like the festival that I did, you also don't have to get VIP. You can get the most affordable option. I'm at a place in my life where if I'm going to music festivals, I will typically get a VIP ticket, so I'm always going to spend more money on that, but you don't necessarily have to. Some food saving tips in both of these countries that I went. So I hardly spent any money on food in these countries. That was my least amount of money spent, and I ate a lot. Asia has some of the best food, and food stalls and night markets, and those are so affordable. So in both countries, I ate a lot of food stalls, night markets, so that's a way that you could save money. I did have one like full-on dining experience when I was in Taiwan. I went to a really pretty rooftop bar, and I knew that was going to be my most expensive meal, and it was. I had 2 glasses of wine and like a plated dinner. That was $60, which is still good because that same meal in Miami would have been $100. But being able to go to the food stalls, like you're paying like $1 or $2 for 6 baos. Eating at the food stalls, night markets is definitely going to save you some money. Now, getting around both of these places, transportation. I didn't use Uber or rideshare once when I was in Taiwan. I used their MRT system the entire time. I used it for everything. It's so affordable, and don't be afraid to navigate the subway system. So I keep saying MRT, that means mass rapid transportation, which is the subway system. So Google Maps is your best bet. It tells you to a T how to operate these subway systems, because I'm from Texas, I live in Florida now, we don't have those, so it can be a little scary if you're not used to it, but don't be afraid. And then in Vietnam, I went to Da Nang, Vietnam, so there is no subway system there, but if you're using rideshare, which is the Grab, the cars still are very affordable. So like my car ride from the airport to my hotel, that was only like $3. In Vietnam, you can also do motorbikes, little scooters. Those are also rideshare options. So I ended up using those. Like I only used a car twice in Vietnam, and the rest of the time I did the Grab bikes because they're so much fun, and they're also a lot cheaper. Like I lost track of how many ones that I used in that time, but I only spent $14 on the total Grab rides for 4 days. Like it was amazing. And there is a lot of traffic in Da Nang, so using the Grab bikes is actually so much more easier and efficient and more cost effective because there's so many of them, right? So as soon as you place your pickup order, like somebody's there in minutes. Because there's so much traffic, like these Grab bikes are easier to like maneuver in and out of traffic, so they're quicker, more efficient, and they cost a lot less. So that is a money saving option if you're by yourself, right? If you have a group of people, obviously you can't take, I mean, you could take multiple Grab bikes, but everybody would have to order their own. But yeah, I used the Grab bikes more than anything, and it's fun. Now on accommodations, you obviously save money there. You don't have to spend almost $900 on a hotel or almost $600, right? Like I got a suite in Vietnam, you don't have to get a suite. There are much cheaper options without having to go down to a hostel level either if you don't want that. I do my research on these hotels when I'm looking at them, like to look where they're located. I read reviews to see what people say about walkability and desirability, because I will spend a little bit more money to stay in a desirable area. And because like that takes away like the transportation costs. If I'm already in the area, then I don't have to spend money getting to and from. Whereas like if you stayed further out from an area that is a fun, touristy, desirable area, then yes, you might save money on the hotel, but you're still spending money like getting to and from these places. So you want to think about the cost. Like if you're saving money on one thing, what are you in turn spending money on somewhere else? So always think about that. Now, so let's talk about the foreign currency, how to pay for things. If you're going to use cash, if you're going to use a credit card, what do you do? So in general, I always take an international credit card. You want that. If you are a traveler and go around the world, you need an international credit card that gives you a $0 foreign transaction fee. Now, if you take your regular debit card or your credit card, yeah, they can use it, but you're going to get charged every single time you swipe that card. I have my credit card through my Bank of America, and every time I use it, I get points. So I'm getting points. Every cent that I spend, I'm making money on it back. I take this with me everywhere I go. I use it for my hotels and the big purchases, really. And you just never know. Like you always want to have a credit card on hand, but definitely get a travel credit card, whether it's through your bank or airline credit card, for example, something like that. So either way, you want an international credit card with a $0 foreign transaction fee, so you don't pay every time you need to swipe that card. Outside of the credit card that I always take with me, I will always bring a certain amount of cash. So I budget about $100 to $150 a day because I never know what I'm gonna buy, all right? Like you obviously do not have to budget that, especially in like Asian countries. $50 a day could even suffice, but I just never know. I'd rather over budget and have the money to spend than not, but you can definitely have a lot less than that. For example, when I went to Taiwan, I had 450 USD in cash. As soon as I get to that country, I immediately exchange that cash at the airport. At the airport, the conversion rate is gonna suck compared to if you're getting it out in the streets. However, I am paying for convenience. I want to get my cash immediately, and I don't want to have to be walking around the city looking for a currency exchange. Yes, you can get better rates outside of the airport, but I am paying for convenience. I want my cash. That's it. So I always take a certain amount of cash, and then I will convert it as soon as I get to the airport. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can also withdraw cash there with your debit card. Last time I did that, I had to pay like a fee. I think I had to pay 2 fees. Like I had to pay an ATM fee and then the like foreign transaction fee. So just be aware of that. Always still take your debit card in case you run out of cash and you need to pull out cash. If you are going to be paying with your credit card at places, say if you go to a restaurant, you pay for a meal, they usually have that little like long card reader. And when you swipe your card, you get the option to pay in your currency. So it'll say like USD or wherever you're coming from, or the local currency. Always select the local currency option, and the bank or your credit card, they're the ones that'll do the conversion rates for you. Because if you select your currency, like the USD, it's actually going to come out a little bit more than what it would have converted to. So just always select the foreign currency when you're using those credit card machines. And also, the good thing about having this international card with points that just rack up, you can use those, like you're spending all this money on this trip now, those will convert later to a free hotel stay. Like I was able to get that one night stay for free at the Chicago airport because I had previous trip points just racked up. So many benefits to using a travel rewards or a cash rewards back credit card. So again, go watch that video. It's super helpful. That is my cost breakdown and money saving tips for my trip to Asia. So just to recap, that trip cost me $7,500, but do not freak out. That does not have to cost you that. I'm just at a different point in place in my life. I have to factor in my safety. I have to factor in my comfort. There are just so many ways to go about it that you don't need to spend that much money in Asia. You could absolutely cut that cost in half. This is the reality of the cost of solo traveling. Now, the only thing that could be split with somebody are the hotel costs, right? Everything else is still gonna come down on my shoulders because I can't split the cost of my flight with somebody else. In the grand scheme of things, it's not really costing me much more money to go by myself than it would be to go with somebody else. So don't let that scare you away either, saying like, it's gonna cost me so much more money to go by myself. Yes, it will a little bit, but not astronomically different that I couldn't make this work if I didn't have somebody or not. So don't let that scare you. Like you wanna be able to do things on your own, do things by yourself. Don't wait for anybody, because for me, solo traveling and being able to go to these places makes me happy, makes my dreams come true. I'm not gonna wait for somebody because they don't have the PTO to take off, or they don't have the money, or they don't have the time to be able to get away. I have those things, so I'm not gonna miss out. I'd rather go alone than not go at all. Thank you guys for watching. In case you didn't know, my name is Alicia, but I go by Electric Ollie online. I combine my passion of traveling the world and going to electronic music festivals into one, and now I'm dancing across the globe, one festival at a time. And if you want to see my full experience in Asia, at the festival, navigating Taiwan by myself, being in Vietnam, I do have all of those videos out. They're on this playlist right here. Again, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.